I'm John White. We're going to be talking about pecans today, and I've been getting a lot of calls, and this is kind of the time of year, at least in the southern part of the state, that a lot of the pecans are out. And I'm going to spend the next few minutes kind of giving you a little quick introduction to pecans and hopefully kind of let you know a little bit about pecans in that short time. But pecans, as far as a homeowner is concerned, we see it in a condition like this where the tree started out as a small tree, and as pecans do, they grow into large trees. And so all of a sudden a homeowner has a large tree to deal with, which a lot of times is beyond the mechanical means that they can take care of it. And as you can see, this tree has been topped and brought down in height a little bit. We'd like to, of course, do that with selective pruning, where you make the selective cuts to bring it back in height, so it is a workable height. And as you can see, the pecan right now is in flower, as far as male flower. So these little fuzzy things that we're seeing on the branches here are the male flower on the tree, and they're called catkins, and they produce the pollen. And when they're ready to shed pollen, you just tap them, and that yellowish powder will come out of them. And out on the tip ends where the new shoot growth is, that's where the female nutlet is formed, or the female flower, which will become the nutlet. So as it forms, it looks like a very, very small pecan nutlet first starting out, and it's going to grow a little bit in size, and then it will be ready to take the pollen, and then the process of fertilization will take place. The catkins will fall off, and then the nut will begin to develop and mature. So in that meantime, this is an ideal time to apply fertilizers. Zinc, especially as a foliar spray, is very, very important on pecans. The foliar spray can be bought as a liquid in nurseries, garden centers. We want to mix it according to directions with water and then spray it onto the foliage of the tree. This can be done with different methods, hose-on sprayers. You can hire a tree service to do it if you do not want to do it yourself, but it is important to get zinc on pecan trees. And usually what we're looking at is bud break, which was a little bit before now, and then a week after that, and then 2 weeks after that second spray, and then 2 weeks after the third spray. So we're going to put about 4 sprays on between the time of bud break and by the time that the cluster has matured into a nice cluster of pecans. So time-wise, we're probably looking at the 1st of April to about the 1st of June. So we need to get those sprays on. But what zinc does is help these leaves become larger in size. The larger the leaves that we can get on the tree, the better these leaves will be able to take care of the nut cluster, plus future nut clusters that may be on the tree. So it's very important to get zinc on the tree. And pecans just, for some reason, seem to have a hard time picking up zinc in our soil, so we do need to apply it foliar. So if you have a young tree that's not as old as this one, it's not producing any pecans on the tree yet, then we want to spray every 2 weeks from bud break, which is the first part of April, to about August 1st. So every 2 weeks with that. And again, you can pick up the materials at the garden center and nurseries for that spraying. So it is important to know that. And we do like to have a couple different varieties so that you have a mixing of the pollen and the female flowers. So we do like to have a good mix, and that makes for a higher quality pecan. The other things we want to look at is, as we're looking at this tree down at the base, there's a little well around the tree. On a large pecan like this, where this pecan needs to be watered is out away from the tree, 20, 30 feet away from the tree. So this whole area needs to be wet down good. A lot of times people start out with a little basin or a little sunken area around the base of the tree, and maybe that was good when the tree was young, but now that the tree has grown in size, it doesn't need to be watered there anymore. Actually, you may do some damage. So we like to water much further away from the tree, and depending on your soil type, you may be looking at watering several times a month, and maybe as much as several times a week to keep its water need there. The other thing that we like to do is fertilize. And when we fertilize, we also want to fertilize with a nitrogen fertilizer, but out away from the trunk of the tree. So again, it needs to be applied out in the area, away from the trunk of the tree. Nitrogen's very soluble in the ground, so we're going to be looking at putting on somewhere around 1/4 pound of actual nitrogen per inch of trunk diameter. So if you have ammonium sulfate fertilizer, you're looking at roughly somewhere around 1 pound, a little over 1 pound per inch of trunk diameter. And so we're going to spread that out over that area after we determine, the fertilizer amount based on the trunk diameter. So that fertilizer, since it's soluble, all you need to do is, set the sprinklers out or turn the sprinklers on and water that material in. And the pecan will pick that up, and it'll give it a lot of good growth. What we're looking at on the shoots on pecans are, for good growth, is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 8 to 10 inches of new growth. If you're getting less than that, you may either want to look at your fertilizer schedule. You might want to apply a little bit more nitrogen fertilizer. If the tree is producing pecans, the growth will stop as soon as it produces a female flower. If it's not producing any crop on the tree, then the shoot will continue to grow. And on an older tree, we don't want to have too much succulent growth, so we want to, keep the growth within that 8 to 10 inch growth range. So if it's over 12 or 14 inches, we may be pushing it too much. So you want to be careful with that. But on a tree that is producing, again, we'd like to see about 8 to 10 inches growth, and then a cluster of pecans to form on the end, and we're doing good. Remember on pecans that whatever you do this year also affects the crop next year, so you want to make sure that you do water, fertilize, and care for the tree properly. So hopefully that's giving you some good insight in how to take care of pecans, and I wish you the best, and we'll see a good crop next year.